Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 381. This is not going to be FCC compliant, but my reaction to how the Brewer Cub finale played out on Monday or Tuesday, whatever the day. Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 381. If I were to have a non-FCC compliant way to sum up the Brewer Cub rubber match on Sunday, I would pull this from Bull Durham and just say,
well, fuck this fucking game.
I think that's how I would put it.
Is that it? Well, fuck this fucking game.
Earmuffs. That's how I felt at whatever time it wrapped up yesterday at 4:10 or 4:15, whatever. That's how I felt about yesterday. So we are going to talk about a disappointing Cubs-Brewers series over the weekend at AmFam Field that started off beautifully with Miz and some offense on Friday. Really bad bullpen game from Chad Patrick on Saturday, and then just unable to find any kind of clutch hitting on Sunday. Bases loaded, nobody out. Down by a run. I mean, bases loaded, nobody out. It's almost more impressive to not get a run in that situation. Now, we'll talk about the disappointment, but we are also going to talk about at the halfway point, 81 games through the year, you're still feeling pretty good, even as annoying as that Saturday-Sunday back-to-back was this weekend. 50 and 31. I mean, they're on pace for 162. That is not playing 162. The record would be 100 wins and 62 losses. So we have to keep that in perspective as well. They're 4-2 against the Cubs. They're 12-5 against the NL Central. Now, that said, they are starting a run of a lot of games in a lot of days. So I think 18 games in 17 days or something like that. And it continues tonight. 4 games set with the Reds at American Family Field. So you got to turn the page quickly here. The bullpen looks a little beat down right now. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk a little Bucks as well. I don't know if we got to it because of all the Giannis feedback we got on the email on the last episode. There were a couple of big roster notes heading into Friday's podcast. We just didn't get to it. Kevin Porter Jr. opted in. Did not see that coming. Sounds like Gary Trent Jr. has opted out. That's fine. And Jericho Sims sounds like he has opted in with his player option next year as well. So they're going to have to do something. I think they've got like 20 guys under contract right now. Some move is going to have to be made, I would think, between now and opening night. Long way to go until that in October. But I thought interesting. The KPJ one surprised me a lot. We'll talk about that too. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, and complete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, now I know I often say, this is the portion of the podcast where I say, tra-la-la, today's podcast has to be shorter. But today's podcast actually does have to be shorter because we have some work that needs to be done in the studio. I walked in here this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting set to record my sportscast about the Brewer Cub finale on Sunday. So I was already in a foul mood. And I get into the B studio, which is where I record everything for all the different markets we do sports for. And I turn on the mic and I hear this. Huh. That's not good. That's not good. Now, depending on the person talking into it, you can say whether it's a good show or a good podcast or not. But you have to have the mic functioning in order to make an assessment of what this sportscast is, or this podcast is, or this morning show is. So that was a scramble early this morning trying to figure out what's going wrong. I think we've got a couple of bad mic cords, but it's interesting. We renovated the studios. I think we talked about that way back in the day, the studio renovations we were doing. And we've now got all this state-of-the-art stuff. We've got state-of-the-art mics, soundboards, digital, everything. I mean, it is as high-end as it can be, from as low-end as it could be to as high-end as it could be. But what's funny is, if it is the mic cords that are bad, heading into the main mic in the B studio, in the old studio where all the wires were hanging out everywhere and everything, I wouldn't say the fire code was compliant or whatever. I mean, we had all sorts of zip ties, and we were MacGyvering it the entire way. But in that studio, I could have ripped this mic cord off, going to get a different mic cord from a different studio or the engineer room and whip it right back on, zip tied. And if that's the problem, bingo, bango, it's fixed. And I think that is the problem. But now with these fancy schmancy mic stands that we have, and the fact that we have lights on our microphones now that let you know when it's white, the mic is off, when it's red, the mic is on. I leave mine on at all times and the volume all the way down when I'm not on the air, because salespeople will not come into your studio if the mic is red. So I'm just watching some kind of ASMR video or something, and I've got the volume all the way down, but the mic is on, then no one will come into the studio when the mic light is red. Something I learned very early on. But it is actually incredibly difficult now to just replace a cord, because you have to disassemble the entire mic stand and the light, put the new cord in, reassemble everything. Back in the old way everything was configured, it was a lot simpler of a fix, if that is the problem. So I am on an auxiliary mic, and we have engineers on their way to the studio from Green Bay here this morning to try to get this rectified. Now, if that's not the problem, then we've got much larger problems. But I'm hoping that it is going to be a simple, and I use that loosely, a simple fix of disassembling this entire thing, reassembling it, and hopefully that cord is what the issue is. So anyway, I actually do have to kind of put the foot to the accelerator on this podcast. Before we hop into the Brewers, we do have the big game. The big game. Oh, the big game. Well, the big race. The big game, the big match, USA Soccer and Bosnia. They are squaring off Wednesday night. So as we went over, I was very confused about what the knockout round was and what the round of 16 was. I guess I got confused. And we have them in the round of 16. That was the future bet we put down at the beginning of the World Cup, the U.S. to get to the round of 16. I thought they advanced and got that ticket cashed with the win against Australia. I was dead wrong. We need them to win Wednesday. So that is the next big future bet we've got going. Plus 130. A decent amount of entertainment points on that. At plus 130 for Team USA to get to the round of 16. To do that, you have to beat Bosnia. Now, we're at a stage right now, again, I think I know the answer to this, but I thought I knew I had made money when I didn't. We are at the stage now, correct, in the round of 32 where there are no longer three outcomes to bet on. There's only a win or a loss. There's no draw you can bet on. So they'll go to extra time, and if you don't get it resolved in extra time, are there penalty kicks? Are there PKs at some point? You go double extra time? I don't know what the rules are, but somebody has to win, right? I don't think we can have a draw. So we need the U.S. to beat Bosnia on, imagine saying that in 1995. Weren't we doing a lot of relief work in Bosnia in 95 or 96? I think there was something going on there. Somalia? I'm getting maybe those confused. I think Bosnia was too. So anyway, don't quote me on that. I'm going to delete that maybe. that could be way wrong. Ignorant American. But we need them to beat Bosnia 7 o'clock match time on Wednesday. Thank God it's a 7 and not one of those 9 p.m. start times. But if they win that, we cash that ticket. So we're looking forward to that on Wednesday night. Also, another quick note. Remember, we talked on the podcast on Friday. We had all those emails about the Bucks and Giannis and all that, all those emails we got in. And we had the one email where somebody was suggesting, and a couple of people have done this, but somebody was directly suggesting maybe it is time to rework the intro to this podcast because Bob Uecker is no longer with us. What if I told you I had a letter from Bob? What if I told you? Hold on. We were going to rework the intro, but I got a letter from Bob Uecker here, and he loves the intro. Loved it, loves it, loved it, and he would like it to stay the same. Got a letter. Got Pat Murphy. Got a letter from Bob Uecker. So we had the person suggest, the Uecker has passed and we're into a new era of Brewer broadcasting, and then Giannis leaving. The Giannis era is over. So we had the Valley-Oop clip in there. We've got the Ted Davis, the Bucks title call, and maybe that's not rubbing people the same way that it used to because of the sour ending to it. So maybe we should rework the intro to this podcast, which has been the same now for 3 years, right? 1 season, 3 years. And the feedback that I got on the email and on the text line, on the B-text line, and on my personal phone was that if you rework the intro... How about new? We riot. So people want the intro to stay the same. The handful of people that suggested changing it... How about new? I had somebody suggest jail. Somebody suggested jail for the people that were suggesting that maybe the intro should be redone. So we are going to stick with... I was probably going to stick with it anyway. Like I said on the Friday podcast, it takes... You'd be surprised at how hard I make an easy task look. You'd be surprised and how long it takes to do something like that ends up being, 80 seconds of audio at the most?
How about no?
We had some people that were saying, if you change the intro, I might be out. I might unsubscribe 1 out of 5, take the review away, all that stuff. So we are going to keep the intro the same. I like the intro. And like I said on Friday, I don't know what we would get. I mean, you've got to have the title calls in there, right? The most recent title call. So what would we go to then? If you take the Super Bowl call out of there from Larrabee, the Ted Davis call, the Euchre, they're the champions, which I love that he said that. I know we've talked about that. I don't know if that was forethought by him or not in 2018 when they won game 163 at Wrigley Field, and we have that in the intro, and he says, and they're the champions. I love that he said it that way instead of saying, and they're the Central champions or the division champions, because now when this team wins a World Series, and I'm convinced it will happen at some point, when this team wins a World Series, we're all kind of bummed because we're not going to get the authentic in-the-moment Euchre call, of course, unless I have a letter. But what we can do, because he left that such a generic call, what you can do then is lace that over whatever that championship call would be from BA or Levering or I guess the national broadcast, whomever it is. But you can use that because he says, and they're the champions. We can use that in the future. So I thank Bob Euchre that he gave us that thing, at least that in the future we can use that. So we're going to keep the intro the same. So yeah, World Cup, U.S. Bosnia, Wednesday, go USA, week heading into the 4th of July. We need to get that one done, get to the round of 16, cash that ticket, and then we'll see. We'll see if there's any other bets to be made. I did not lay anything on them plus 2,800 like we talked about on Friday. I don't know. You would win. If you just put 100 on it, obviously, you'd win almost $3,000. It almost doesn't feel like enough of a return. I don't think that it's going to happen, so kind of feels like it would be a waste. We'd take the money we're probably going to make on Wednesday, hopefully, and then roll that in there and then probably lose it right away. We did nothing with that as of yet. All right, so let's talk about the Brewer-Cubs series, and we're going to air some grievances. Now, I'm going to do something that brings me no joy right out of the gate. I'm going to do this thing, then we're going to talk about the series, then we're going to take a breath, and then we're going to look at where this team is at the halfway point, at the 81-game marker. Now, one thing that I have to do, and this brings me no pleasure, it brings me no joy, to have to say what I'm about to say, but I'm going to have to be nice.
I don't think I can be that nice. You be nice!
I'm going to try to be as nice as possible.
Evan, we're down 2 points.
Oh, that's soccer.
Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Go World Cup. That should be the quote they take. If they were going to get a pull quote from this podcast about soccer, the soccer segment, quote marks, go World Cup. But we've got to be nice.
I don't think I can be that nice. You be nice!
I do have to give a modicum of credit, a shred of approval, a little bit of a thumbs up to the Cubs and what they were able to accomplish over the weekend at American Family Field. And like I said, I just get a little puke in the back of my throat just even thinking that, let alone saying it. But let's just take for a second, let's pretend we're M-Bone. I'm not playing any of the M-Bone stuff from Saturday or Sunday. M-Bone had a meltdown on Friday, which I enjoyed. Put yourself in sweaty armpit M-Bone's world. The guy we play the clips of when the Bears have their hearts ripped out, when the Cubs have their hearts ripped out. He's he must have gone to Texas. He's a Texas football fan too, and that hasn't been going well either. He's the guy that live streams himself, and we always use those clips when there's heartbreak in there. So you put yourself in M-Bone's spot, and heading into Friday, this Cubs team is 6.5 back in the division. And like we discussed on Friday, from a Brewer fan perspective, you could have almost buried this team over the weekend. Now, there's a long way to go. Like I said, we are just at the halfway point. There are 81 games left. But you had a chance, if you sweep it, to put them 9.5 back. But if you just take 2 out of 3, put them 7.5 back, and I think 9 back in the loss column, it's not over if that's what ends up happening. But it's pretty close. I mean, it is pretty close to getting to that point already at the turn of the calendar to July. So if you're a Cubs fan, you're looking at this and saying, God, we're already 6.5 back. We're 8 back in the loss column. They've got Miz going on Friday, Harrison on Saturday, Woodruff going on Sunday. We've got Colin Ray with a gentleman's 5 ERA, just a middle of the road. And look, Colin Ray was fine. He was fine in Milwaukee when he was here. He was even good for some stretches. I think he had a 12-6 record his last time he was here. ERA a little over 4. That's great for a fifth starter. So, but if you're a Cubs fan, you're saying the only starting pitcher we even know is going to go over the weekend is Colin Ray, and he's matching up against the Miz. Then you've got Kyle Harrison, who's going to be an all-star. And you've got Woodruff, who just came back with, 5 or 6 shutout innings in his comeback in Cincy, and he's going on Sunday. And if you're a Cubs fan, you're looking at it and saying, we've got Colin Ray, we've got TBD, and we've got TBD. And 4/5 of our rotation is ravaged by injury, and we don't even have, even though the Brewers have owned him, we don't even have Shota going this weekend. And you're on the road, and you're at American Family Field. So if you're a Cubs fan looking at the setup of this weekend, you're thinking, good God, we're going to get drowned this weekend. I mean, there's a chance we're coming out of this 9.5 games back. And for them not only to hang in there, but to get a series win the way they did, you do have to tip your cap. I mean, those pitching matchups, Miz, and the starting pitching was great. Miz, Harrison, they were all great. The offense was MIA for a lot of the series Saturday, Sunday. The bullpen was not fantastic. But if you just look at that series like we talked about on Friday going into it, you've got them exactly where you want them. You've already got them 6.5 back, 8 back in the loss column. You've got your 3 horses going Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're at home a weekend series. And yeah, there were a lot of Cubs fans there, but you've got them at home in a weekend series. This is right where you want them. The juices, it's so ripe. The juices are dripping down the side of your cheek. And then the Brewers get a win on Friday, and you're thinking, at worst, you're coming out of this, given the pitching matchups, with a series win, and you might have a chance to sweep them. The Cubs just simply outplayed the Brewers on Saturday and Sunday. They outplayed them on the margins. They put together tougher at-bats. They hung in counts against really good pitchers. They had mediocre pitchers that pitched way above their skis on Saturday and Sunday, and a part of that is how bad the Brewer offense has been with runners in scoring position. We will talk about that. But I mean, Bryce Wilson gave him 4 1/3, no runs given up. Now, Bryce Wilson had a nice 2-year run in Milwaukee as a long relief guy, as a mop-up guy. I think they had his stats in Milwaukee were up on Sunday on a graphic that he had given them a 3.45 ERA over 2 seasons. That's a hell of a 2-year run. And then he left. He went to the White Sox, I think, last year. Was terrible there. He's been kicking around the minor leagues. They said he had a 7 ERA in AAA Iowa. They called him up this weekend because they were desperate for any kind of pitching, anybody that could give them some length. And he gives them, back at his old stomping grounds, I guess you could say, 4 1/3, no runs. They had a lot of pitchers like that on Saturday and Sunday that just hung in there and made really good pitches at tough moments with runners in scoring position. They outplayed them. I mean, they just did. The Cubs outplayed the Brewers. They out-Brewersed the Brewers on Saturday and Sunday. Now, we'll break that down a little bit further. But first, let's talk about Friday. Jacob Misiorowski, he threw 105.5. Jacob Misiorowski, you know what the heat indexes are in the state of Wisconsin today? We've got excessive heat warnings. Jacob Misiorowski, the temperatures today with the heat index are Jacob Misiorowski numbers. When he threw 105.5 in the first inning, I gasped. I said, that can't be real. Everybody gasped. The crowd, you could hear, went, ooh. And then when they said on the broadcast, because you only see 105, which in and of itself blows you away. And then on the broadcast, BA said that registered at 105.5. And then he said in the postgame, Miz said he slipped. He didn't even have his full torque behind it. He slipped on that. So 106 is coming. 106 is coming. I mean, he may get to a point. We talk about him throwing radio station frequencies. You cannot get a radio station frequency beyond 107.9, I think, or 107.5. We could get to a point where Jacob Misiorowski throws a pitch faster than the highest possible radio frequency. I mean, that's where we're treading into right now. 105.5. Now, he was not his sharpest self on Friday. He walked 4 batters. That was weird to see, just given what we've seen from him. And he did give up some hard contact, gave up the home run to Suzuki in the 5th inning. That gave the Cubs a 1-0 lead. But at the end of the day, he gives you 6 innings of 1-run ball, 8 strikeouts, only gave up 2 hits. And the Brewers rallied. Garrett Mitchell hits that big 2-run bomb after the Cubs nearly turned a triple play. You had 2 on, right, and nobody out. And the Cubs almost turned a triple play. But you had 2 on, nobody out. I think it was Vaughn hit that comebacker right to the pitcher. He catches it, doubles the guy off second. So you went from 2 on, nobody out to 1 on, 2 out in a blink. But then Garrett Mitchell comes through with a clutch 2-run bomb. The call by Levo on the radio had me dying. You can sense, so he's going to say something about Craig Counsell at the end of this call, and Craig Counsell's pitching decisions, and you can sense Levering's thinking about it. Like, there are gaps in this call where you can tell Levering is sort of pondering, like, should I say something mean about the opposing manager who probably worked with me very nicely over the course of a decade or whatever it ended up being, 8 years? But this call by Levo is
1-0 pitch to Garrett Mitchell. Roberts sets and deals. And a fly ball to deep right center. It is way back. It's going to be gone. Garrett Mitchell. A 2-run blast, and the Brewers have the lead.
He's thinking about right here. I know this pregnant pause. I do them often. This is a third trimester pregnant pause.
The Brewers go from the outhouse to the penthouse.
What the hell? Let's go for it, Levo.
Garrett Mitchell's 6th home run of the season. And another pitching change from Craig Counsell that goes down the toilet. And another pitching change from Craig Counsell that goes down the toilet.
See what I mean?
And another pitching change from Craig Counsell that goes down the toilet.
Now, you know Lane was in the booth next to him, and he went, ooh, he did it. Because it really, it's sports. People blow that way out of it's sports. You got to act like a gentleman on the air. The gentleman. People blow that kind of stuff out of proportion all the time. It's sports, guys. It's fun. I know it's professional and millions of dollars, and you have to set a good example and all that stuff, but it's sports. I love that he thought about it for 10 seconds, and because that is the history, right? I mean, that is the Cubs-Brewers history since Counsell went to Chicago, and these two teams match up. It seems like Counsell always makes the wrong decision.
And another pitching change from Craig Counsell that goes down the toilet.
So the vibes could not have been better at that point. You're up 2-1. Hamilton triple, 3-1. Contreras hit one. Now, that was an emotional moment because of the Venezuelan earthquake. And remember, Team Venezuela won the World Baseball Classic. And you've got two key Brewer players, Jackson Chourio and William Contreras, are Venezuelan and were on that team. And you could tell it was emotional. That was the Apple TV game on Friday. Contreras was talking pregame and got teary-eyed. He talked postgame and got teary-eyed. He had the message to his fellow Venezuelans on his chest protector. And he clocked one out of the park. I mean, I think it one hopped its way out of the actual park. 459 feet, 2-run bomb. Cubs got one back, but then Yelly had that RBI double. The PCA, he almost brought that one back. I mean, it was a home run. He was able to bring it back in the field of play, couldn't secure the catch. But Yelly gets that RBI double, and the Brewers take it by a 6-2 final. I'm pretty sure it was McGillen, despite it not being a save, right? And he gave a one walk, but he pretty much mows him down. Ashby had pretty much a nice night on Friday, 2 strikeouts. Uribe was great. And you get the 6-2 win. So at that point, things are going the way that we think they're going to go in this series, given where the Brewers are at, given where the Cubs are at, given where the Cubs are at injury-wise, and the pitching matchups, we're feeling great. We're feeling great going into Saturday. Just win one of the next two. I mean, win both. Sweep them and bury this team. And if they're 9.5 back and 11 back in the loss column, I'm probably not calling it because I'm still a little stitious. I'm probably not on the podcast today calling the race with that much time left. But 9.5 games, even in late June, with an 11-game better in the loss column, that is a tough road to hoe if you're the Cubs. So they come back on Saturday, Kyle Harrison on the hill, and the Cubs go with, was it Drew Peterson? David Peterson, not Drew Peterson. David Peterson, who they just picked up from the Mets. And he's got okay numbers, around a 5 ERA, very similar to Colin Ray. In his career, David Peterson has had some nice years. Yeah, in the Mets in 2024, he was 10-3 with a 2.9 ERA. 25, he was 9-6, made 30 starts, 4.1 ERA. I mean, not terrible. He was 3-6 with a 6 ERA with the Mets before the Cubs picked him up, just because they had to find any available arm. I mean, any random arm that was available on the trade market that you could get for a song, that you could get for cash, they had to get him, and they did. And David Peterson actually pitched really well. 5 2/3, 2 runs. Kyle Harrison had that pitch count up there, but 5 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts. Chourio had that leadoff home run. You're sitting pretty. Suzuki responded. He had a great series. Tied the game, or had a 2-run shot, put him up 2-1. And then in the 5th inning, Salford tied a 2-2 game at that point, and then the bullpen just didn't have it. Chad Patrick, it's been tough. He's had, let me see, how many bad outings? A 7.27 ERA in the month of June. Not great. Not great. As a Chad Patrick backer, and as a Jake Rake Bowers backer, he also had a terrible at-bat in the 10th inning yesterday we'll talk about. So not a great weekend for some of my personal favorites. But Chad Patrick, heading into the Wednesday, June 10th appearance where he melted down in Las Vegas against the Athletics, he had a 2.22 ERA. He had 3 saves. He had a 3-2 record. One of the highest WARs pitching-wise on the team. And then he got lit up in Vegas against the Athletics. He got lit up his next time up against the Phillies in a game he only lost by a run. And now he's given up runs in each of his last 3 appearances. 2 runs against the Braves in the win against the Braves on the road last Sunday. Gave up a run in an inning and 2/3 against the Reds in that weird game on Wednesday, the B bullpen game. He didn't have it, and he couldn't give them the length that Murph wanted him to. And then on Saturday, he was bad again. 2 1/3, 4 runs given up. Walks have been the problem. 3 walks in that Wednesday appearance at Cincy, 2 walks on Saturday. You just can't give away the free passes, and the Brewer bullpen seems to be doing that a lot. The middle guys seem to be doing that. Uribe and McGill have almost completely stabilized, but the middle relief guys, Ashby's had a problem with that too lately. have just been issuing way too many free passes. Yeah, that ERA in the month of June, woof. Buzz your girlfriend, woof. But before that, 2.08 ERA in one appearance, obviously, in March. 2.66 ERA in April. 2.65 ERA in June. 7.27 in the month of June. So 2.65 in the month of May. 7.27 in the month of June. I do think what's happening a little bit to Chad Patrick, and he probably deserves just a little bit of grace, right, please? He has shuttled back and forth, and he did this a bit last year, but not to the extent that he has so far this year. So he's already pitched 62 innings. He's made 6 starts. He opened in one of those, so he wasn't really the traditional starter. They've moved into the pen. He's trying to get a feel for that. So he's kind of been snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap, Michael Scott, kind of in between two worlds here. And I'm wondering if starting the year as a starter and then going to the bullpen, then starting again, then going back to the bullpen. Look, he's got to be a pro. He's got to be better than what he was in the last 3 or 4 outings out of the last 5. But I do wonder if some of that shuttling back and forth, not quite knowing his role, I do wonder, and some maybe arm fatigue, if that is weighing on him a bit, and he just is not sharp right now. And that ends up costing him. Cubs put a big old crooked number on the board. They end up taking Saturday 8-2. Who else was bad out of the bullpen? Who else can we yell at? Grant Anderson was bad. Koenig was good. Koenig made his return. I don't know why Koenig didn't pitch yesterday. I guess maybe you don't want to pitch him back-to-back days right away. He had a scoreless frame. Joe Kunel was bad on Saturday. He was really bad on Sunday, which we'll talk about. And you end up losing that game 8-2. It is what it is. You know, you were right there, 2-2 game. Middle relief was not good. But at that point, it's a 1-1 series. The Brewers going into Saturday were 4-0 against the Cubs on the season, then 4-1 coming out of Saturday. That is not a bad team. I mean, I know we like to take our shots at the Cubs, but after the win on Saturday, that's a 7-game over 500 Cubs team. They've had a weird year where for a brief cup of coffee, they were the best record in baseball at 27-12. They've had a 10-game winning streak. They've had 2 10-game losing streaks. But at the end of the day, coming out of Sunday, they're 46-38. Where are they in the realm of, let's click on league. So it's Dodgers 1, Brewers 2, Braves 3. I mean, the 5th best record in the National League. And with all the injuries they have, so you're going to lose a game. And that's how I just dealt with Saturday. We were very busy on Saturday, so I didn't really have a chance to sit down and watch every pitch of every inning. And especially when we saw what happened to Chad Patrick, it was kind of a foregone conclusion at that point. But you're going to lose games. I mean, you're going to lose games to the Cubs. You're not going to beat them every time out. So that's what I said to myself Saturday night going to bed. It's fine. Just get the series on Sunday, and this will be fine. And they come out on Sunday, and they have one of the most infuriating games that I have watched this year. Maybe the worst loss this year. There's probably a little bit of recency bias in there, but it has to be on the Mount Rushmore. There haven't been a lot of losses, 31 losses. And I can only think of maybe a handful of other games that really had me just staring off into space for a while. But that has to be up there, given the opponent, given you're in the NL Central, given its council. That has to be the number one worst loss of the year for the Brewers on Sunday. So you had Woody out there. He was tremendous. 5 2/3, did not give up a run. He has now gone since he came back. And the velo is what it is. But since he came back, 11 2/3 innings pitched, has not given up a run as of yet. And he's finding a way. Life finds a way. Brandon Woodruff finds a way. He has a 93-94, 94 at best right now, sinker fastball. But he's working the corners, he's working the edges, he's working the top of the zone, and he's finding a way to just get it done. The results don't look really any different, and to the naked eye, can I tell watching a TV what the difference is between 94 and the 97 or 98 he used to be throwing? Not really. He is basically the same pitcher with less velo. He's mixing his pitches more. He was tremendous on Sunday. He deserved a better fate. Now, Gary Sanchez, the Kraken, hits a solo shot to put the Brewers up 1-0 in the second inning. And then we just got into a problem the Brewers have had now really for the past 2 weeks, or maybe even more, is hitting with runners in scoring position, rispies. And they just can't get it done lately. They had runners at the corners in the third inning, 1 out, middle of the order. I mean, Chourio and Terang are coming up. You've got a runner at third base and 1 out, and you've got Chourio and Terang coming up, and they both strike out. In the fourth inning, Andrew Vaughn, of all people, leads off with a triple. This would be like an offensive lineman rushing for 42 yards to get to the goal line, and then you can't punch it in the end zone. Josh Jacobs, I probably shouldn't use that. And Jordan Love can't sneak it into the end zone on 4 attempts, and you have to kick 3 attempts, and you have to kick a field goal. And you think to yourself, The offensive lineman picked up a fumble and rumbled 45 yards to the goal line. We can't punch it in for this guy. Andrew Vaughn triples to lead off the fourth inning. Remember, it's his second triple of the year. Remember we played the audio from Murphy? Pat Murphy. What a grizzled, not that I'm shocked by it. To Bill Brasky, what a grizzled son of a bitch this guy is. He had surgery on his back on Thursday. They showed on Brewer Twitter, because he took a picture of it, the smashed bits of bone that came out of his back, because that's why he couldn't walk, basically. He's got hip problems, too, but that was the primary thing. He had back surgery on Thursday. He was back in the dugout on Friday. Now, he didn't do postgame on Sunday. I think he was a little in and out. He was in the dugout on Friday, but how are you having vertebrae surgery on Thursday and back in the dugout on Friday? But anyway, so where were we? Pat Murphy, Gary Sanchez, runners in scoring position. I kind of got lost there with I lost the thread. Line. I lost the thread by thinking of Murphy and just the fact that he even managed over the weekend. But anyway, they had all these. Oh, he said Andrew Vaughn. Remember, he had that first triple of the year, and then Murph said, basically, I'll eat my hat. He basically said that. He did a strange brew hat bet if he ever has a triple again. He had a triple again. And you can't cash in Andrew Vaughn standing at third base with nobody out. Just put a ball in the air. And you just knew that at some point, all of these lapses and the inability to cash these tickets, they were going to cost the Brewers yesterday. Seventh inning, Aaron Ashby spikes a curveball. He's been super erratic, and that allowed the tying run to cross the plate on a wild pitch, tied at 1. And we end up going to extra innings. Now, what portion of the blame banana cream pie do you want to lay at the feet of Joel Kuhnel? That was such a weird 10th inning. Because it's 1-1, and we know now in extras you get the ghost runner on second base to begin the inning. So it encourages higher scoring and to end the game quickly once it gets to extras. He got the first 2 outs. I mean, I know people are going to poop on Joel Kuhnel, and rightfully so for what happened after it, but he was actually in a spot, which is super rare. He was in a spot, he put himself in a position where he got the first 2 guys out, and the ghost runner hadn't scored. Like, if he is able to get that third and final out, you're thinking, wow, that's amazing. Not that the Brewers have been hitting with runners in scoring position all day, but you have now put your team in a spot, if he's able to do that, where it's a 1-1 game, bottom of the 10th inning, and you've got a runner on second base, and you've got a very high probability, I think, of winning that game. So at the beginning of the inning, I'm singing Joel Kuhnel's praises, like, wow, he got the first 2 outs, and the ghost runner got to third, but he hasn't gotten home yet. You know how rare it is to strand the ghost runner in that situation? And he almost had it. And then they had him walk PCA. He threw 1 pitch to PCA that was way outside. And then they intentionally walk him, because why would you pitch to him anyway in that scenario? And I was fine with that. But then something happened. I mean, I know they closed the roof. It was a hot day. They were talking about on the broadcast that Joel Kuhnel, and as a fellow sweater, I'm sweating right now, as I often say, and I am. He clearly had a lather going out there, and maybe he couldn't grip the ball the way he wanted to, but something happened there. You had 2 outs and a runner on third, threw 1 pitch way outside to PCA. They intentionally walk him, and then after that, he just couldn't throw a strike. I can't tell you how loudly I was screaming at the TV, throw a strike. For the love of God, throw a strike. He throws 4 balls. Okay, another walk. Now the bases are loaded and the screws are tightening, and then he gets in a 2-0 count. I mean, and he's not even close. And I am begging, I am pleading with Joel Kuhnel, just throw it down the middle. Just pipe one. I mean, make him hit it. The likelihood is that Michael Busch, who was at the plate in that scenario, he's a very good hitter. If you throw one middle, he's probably going to get a single, but make him do it. Don't just give him the free pass. You never know. Maybe he gets under it a tick. Maybe he gets outside of it a tick, and it ends up being a fly ball. Like, this is baseball. Even if you're putting it on a tee, 7 times out of 10, and that's with a Hall of Fame caliber hitter, 7 times out of 10, that hitter is going to fail. Make him earn his way on. Don't let him walk. Don't walk in the go-ahead run. You've done all this great work to put yourself in a spot where you might be able to strand the ghost runner. Make him hit it. Put it on a tee. Float it in there like Rookie of the Year for all I care. Float it. And he just 2 more outside, not even close. Walks in the go-ahead run. Then Seiya Suzuki had gotten a 2-0 count. Hitters count, he's been red hot. 2 RBI single, put the Cubs up 4-1. Then Kunal's finally able to get the final out. Now, we'll talk more about Kunal in a second. Bottom of the 10th inning, the Brewers rally. Yelly, the first batter up. RBI single, 4-2. Eventually, it gets to a point where Garrett Mitchell, who left Saturday's game with cramping, which you hate to see because injuries have always been a problem for Mitchell, and he had just surpassed his most games played, 70 games in a year. He has just gotten past his most games played, his most at-bats taken in a year, in year 4, right? Year 4 now for Mitchell. And he had a cramp. They said he's fine, and clearly he must have been to have him pinch hit on Sunday. So he gets in there. He takes a base-loaded walk. So you are now. You go from as bad as the top of the 10th inning was and how awful it was to watch Kunal not be able to find the strike zone. You're down 4-1. You think this game is over. All of a sudden, it's 4-3, and you have the bases loaded and nobody out. At worst, you're thinking this is going to the 11th inning. Like, just sack fly, hit something somewhere, and you're probably going to score the tying run. And I don't know who pitches. I mean, I would guess Kunal probably has to stay in, so who knows how that goes. I don't know who pitches the 11th inning. It did sort of feel like they almost had to win it or lose it in that 10th inning because I don't know what the pitching plan was going to be beyond that. But bases loaded and nobody out, and you're down by a run. For the love of God, you've got to win that game. And then my guy, Rake, I have to be critical of Rake Bowers. That also brings me no joy because he has been great this year, and we've been singing his praises all across the podcast on the air. I think he's a borderline all-star still. He swings at the first pitch. You have a guy on the mound. What was his last name? Wicks. Not John Wick. Jordan Wicks. He had been awful this year. He's been awful in his career. His career ERA is just short of 6. He had, going into yesterday when they put him on the mound, and I remember BA on the broadcast specifically saying when he had to bring Wicks in to face Mitchell, he said this is the last thing Council wants to do. But they were depleted in their bullpen too. They put Jordan Wicks' stats up before he threw a pitch. He had an ERA of 15.34. 15! And he walks Mitchell, so you're within a run. Jake Bauers swings at the first pitch. My man, what are you doing? Make him throw a couple of strikes. Now, if you watch on Gamecast, the pitch that Bauers swung at was a strike, but it was low and on the outside corner. You're never going to do anything with that. So wait for your pitch. You don't have to swing at the first pitch. Let's see if he can throw a couple of strikes. Let's see if he can get ahead in the count. He just walked Mitchell on 5 pitches. Yeah, he threw you a strike. Let's see if he can do it again. And then let's see if he can do it again. A strikeout is just exactly basically, well, what happened anyway, where you give up the out, you don't do anything with it. But at least then maybe you're hanging in the count. You put some pressure on him. Maybe you get to a 3-2 count and the screws tighten. You never know. To swing at the first pitch in that situation, unless it's middle, and you just know you can tee one up and at least get the sac fly to tie it. I don't know what he was doing there. One of the worst at-bats of the year. And then Gary Sanchez comes up, and it's unfortunate that they burned Contreras earlier in the game, and he didn't have anybody that he could go to. There were a couple of scenarios yesterday where you ended up with Sanchez being the go-ahead run or the tying run. He's on second base, but he's so slow. I mean, that's what he is. He's Gary Sanchez. He's a big guy. He's the Kraken. Krakens are not fleet of foot. And it just was unfortunate that several times yesterday you ended up in a situation where you had Gary Sanchez in critical, either run on the base paths in critical situations or at the plate where you needed him to leg one out. And that's just not something Gary Sanchez has ever been able to do, and certainly not now at 36 years old. And he gets in a 2-2 count, and he hits one down the third baseline, and it ends the game. A 5-4-3 around the horn double play, not even close at first. And the Cubs end up taking it by a 4-3 final. Now, how you want to divvy this blame up is up to you. I am putting 95% of the blame banana cream pie on the offense yesterday. Joel Kunal should never have been in that situation. Now, he's got to be better. He has to be better, especially when you're 2 outs and the ghost runner's still at third base and you have a chance to do something rare and strand that ghost runner. You've got to be better. But this game should never have gotten to the 10th inning. The Brewers were 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position and had 100 chances, 12 technically, I guess. And had, well, I guess 10 where he didn't capitalize. But 100, metaphorically 100 chances to blow this game open and never have it get to the 10th inning. They should have won that game yesterday 5-1, 6-1, 4-1, something like that. It should never have come to Joel Kunal on the mound on the top of the 10th inning. Now, it did, and he has to be better, but I am putting the bulk of the blame pie on the shoulders of the Brewer offense just being inept yesterday in big situations. And not the least of which is when you have the bases loaded and nobody out and you can't even get the tying run across the plate and the crowd's going crazy. And yesterday felt like a very 50-50 split, and that might be generous to Brewer fans. Kind of felt like it was more 60-40 Cubs fans there yesterday, or maybe even worse than that. So the crowd's at a fever pitch, playoff feel to it, and you can't get that tying run. Just put one in the air. Just put one in the air. Take a walk, Jake. Take a walk, tie the game, then a sac fly after that wins it. I just didn't understand the approach from the Brewers yesterday. Now, that said, they have been really bad with runners in scoring position, and I have an idea as to why that is. I think, now how many weeks ago was the Vegas series against the Athletics? I think it was 3 weeks ago. Lost. So that's the 28th. They played in Vegas on June 10th. So you're 2.5 weeks removed. Up until that Monday game in Vegas against the Athletics, the Brewers had been doing what they've done a lot over the last 3 years. Scrappy in at-bats, working the count, fouling off pitches. Things the Cubs did very well Saturday, Sunday, unfortunately. Just fighting tooth and nail, making everybody work, hustling out every ground ball, making every defense be airtight. I mean, that's Brewer baseball. Now, for better or worse in the playoffs, sometimes it has not worked out. It has not worked out in the playoffs because you just haven't had the pop recently, and we can talk more about that when we get to the trade deadline and whatever. I mean, I still think this team needs a power bat, but the way they grind out at bats, their approach over the course of 162 works. If you have talented players, you're going to win 85 to 90 plus games, maybe 100 games, and I think you're going to be in a good spot. It has worked in the regular season. They, in that Monday game, on Monday, June 8th, that was the wacky game against the Athletics where they won it 15-14 in 12 innings, and that's where we realized the thin air in Vegas and everything you hit in the air. It looked like all of what should have been middle of the outfield pop flies ended up leaving the park in right field. And I think what happened in that game is the Brewers fell a little bit in love with the home run ball. And they had fun. Like, I mean, how could you not? If you're a professional baseball player, you're playing in those weird conditions where, honestly, if it feels like if you elevate anything with the jet streams and the thin air and the dry air, it felt like anything you put in the air could have been a home run. And so they were swinging for the fences basically that entire series against the Athletics. I feel like their brains got broken a little bit by playing on the moon for 3 days, because ever since then, they have been swinging at really bad pitches out of the zone. And I also understand what Yelly talked about in the postgame. Every team goes through this, the ebb and flow of the season. You're going to have weeks where you're bad with runners in scoring position. They'll figure it out, and I think they will. But I do believe that has been a part of their problem. They got in that weird playing condition in Vegas. They fell in love with elevating the ball. They fell in love with trying to hit home runs because it felt like that was how you were going to have to win those games. And they've never really gotten back to the at-bats that we're used to seeing. Now, they've had a couple of games where they put 9 runs on the board against Cleveland on the 17th. They scored 9 against the Braves as they salvaged the third game of that series. And that 8-run second inning, that was classic Brewer baseball. 8 runs, all with 2 outs, hitting it to the opposite field, working the counts. They've had little glimmers of what they normally are. But if you watch this whole Cubs series over the weekend, and really the Reds series too, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even though they swept the Reds, a 2-1 win, a 2-0 win, a 6-5 grinder where Vaughn accounted for 3 of those runs on the pinch hit 3 RBI double. If you watch this week specifically, and most of that Braves series outside of the 9-4 win, it just feels like they're trying to hit home runs. Like they're still stuck in that mindset of just elevate the ball and it'll be gone, and you're not playing in Vegas anymore. So you need to kind of get back to where you're at. The high fastball has been a real Achilles heel of everybody. Bryce Terang is swinging at every high fastball. Cooper Pratt, God bless him, yesterday, he's just a kid. He's 21 years old, and in a big spot, I think in the 8th inning yesterday with a couple of runners on, or maybe the 9th inning, he swung at 2 pitches back-to-back that were over his head. I mean, just not a lot of discipline, which I guess you're not going to expect from a guy in his, 13th MLB game, and he's 21 years old. But every Brewer batter seems like is just getting killed on the high fastball. And that's what Bryce Wilson did all day yesterday. And to his credit, I mean, he found that little thin top part of the zone where it's hard to hit it, but it's still kind of a strike. They tried to review a few. They were all strikes. And every Brewer pitcher just couldn't hold back. Churrio's doing it. Terang's doing it. Yelly's doing it. Pratt's doing it. Everybody seems to be in love with that high fastball. And I think that is a ripple effect of what happened in that Athletic series in Vegas. And they just can't, they haven't really gotten out of it since then. So they've got to find a way to regroup here offensively, and they'll get it. They'll figure it out. But I do think that is a part of the problem. I think they played in those weird conditions, and everybody thought you had to hit 1 million home runs, and then guys were putting up gaudy numbers in that series because they were putting up good, big power numbers. And they just never really got back to the way they normally play in the Philly series, the Cleveland series, the Atlanta series, the Cincy series, or the Cubs series over the weekend. So you come out of yesterday. Now let's have a little... Despite how annoying Saturday, Sunday was, and you knew Cubs fans were chirping on Twitter, we're only 5.5 back. We had 2 10-game losing streaks. We're only 5.5 games back. We're 7 back in the loss column, by the way. So all of that, and the Brewers went into the weekend with a 6.5 game lead. They come out of the weekend with a 5.5 game lead. So I am more than okay with where we're at right now. This is not done by a long shot. This division race is not done. The playoff race is not done. We've got a long way to go. But at the 81 game mark, as agitating as Saturday and Sunday were, you are 12-5 against the NL Central. You are 4-2 against the Cubs. You got tiebreakers against everybody right now in the NL Central, right? Have they played the Pirates? Oh, they don't. They lost that. That's right. They lost that series to Pittsburgh. Okay, so you have the tiebreaker with the Reds, with the Cubs, with the Cardinals right now, and you don't have it with the Pirates, and we'll see what happens. They play Pittsburgh right before the All-Star break. So that's the only team right now in the division. But you're 12-5 in the division. You're 4-2 against the Cubs, sitting in second place. You're 7 games better in the loss column, and you are 50-31. Let me say again. You are a franchise record, 50-31 through 81 games. As we said in the teaser, you are on pace to win 100 games. Now, is that going to happen? I would think it's unlikely. But mid-90s, low to mid-90s, upper 90s like last year, I think that's entirely in the realm. But that's where you're at. So a rip your heart out kind of loss on Sunday. One that I was happy was an afternoon game, because if that's a 7 p.m. start time and it ends at 10:30, and then I've got to go put together audio for Sportscast, which whatever, I get it. No one's crying tears for that, nor should you. But that's one of those then where I'm sitting on Twitter. It's 11:15, it's 11:30. I'm getting 3 hours of sleep. I was so happy that game was an afternoon game and I wasn't going to stare catatonically into the nothing for the next 6 hours. And just so I scrolled Twitter for a little bit. I went for a little run. I listened to the post game. I heard other crazy people calling into sports radio. That made me feel better. And after about 45 minutes, making dinner, I was on to the next thing. But I was very thankful it was a matinee kind of loss like that, as annoying as it was. If that's a 7 o'clock start time, I'm probably not sleeping at all. That's how annoying that loss was. But when you take the macro view, we also take the macro view, zoom out, take that drone cam. The larger one is the dad. Anyone else? Colin Jost has a birthday today, by the way, everybody. 44 years old. I played that on the air on the B Morning Show. There are 2 commercials you see right now on every Brewer game. 2 commercials in every commercial set. You see the John Kuhn Potawatomi, where he's like, when they asked me to be a part of the team, I had to be a part of the team. Well, you're also getting paid. I just love the way he positions it. When Potawatomi asked me, John Kuhn, to be a part of this team, I said, is that check going to cash? I said, I've got to be a part of the team. Are you doing this pro bono, John Kuhn? Probably not. So that one always plays. And then the Blue Moon Colin Jost commercial, where Colin Jost is talking to the 2 oranges, and the one has his head chopped off partially, and it's going in the Blue Moon. The larger one is the dad. So that's one you always see. And then there's the rally house. It's a rally house. So those 3 you always see. But I did play that on the air this morning. And I did get a couple of texts. I said, am I the only one who laughs at this Blue Moon commercial every time I see it? It's on every commercial break. But at that halfway point, you are 50-31 and feeling really, really good, despite the fact that Saturday and Sunday was kind of a gut punch. And yeah, Cubs fans are going to be feeling themselves here. M-Bone, I'm sure, had a ball on his live stream. I will be ignoring. I'll be blocking all M-Bone-related content here for the next 24 hours. And they're going to talk themselves into, just like we would. I mean, if the roles were reversed and the Brewers got to 8 games over 500 and they beat the Cubs at Wrigley 2 out of 3, and it's sort of been a meandering year the way the Cubs have been, and you finally got one against your rival and you picked up a game, yeah, we'd feel the exact same way. Oh, only 5.5 back. Long way to go. Haven't even got to the trade deadline yet. So the Cubs were doing what I would expect Cubs fans to do. Going and pissing in a trough. I don't know. The whole deal. Trough races. So that's where we're at, though. You cannot be upset about 50-31. Would 51-30 be better? Sure. But you can't be mad about 50-31 and on pace to win 100 games. Now, a part of the issue right now for the Brewers, I think, is that they played a ton of close games. And I do think, I don't know what they do with Joe Kudell today. I mean, you see a guy, you just got him. He's been okay you got the save on Wednesday in Cincy. He was terrible over the weekend. Is that a guy you just DFA and move on? Do you call up a fresh arm? I do think we talked about Chad Patrick. Aaron Ashby had that spike ball yesterday. He has been bad in the month of June. We said Chad Patrick's ERA was over 7. Ashby's is over 6. He's 10-1, and the ERA is still in the low 3s, but he's been not good. And I do think a part of that is these leverage relievers have been used, and we're only in game 81. They've played a lot of close games. So I don't know what the approach is heading into this stretch of baseball where you're playing a ton of games with no off days. This team does not have an off day until, is it the All-Star break? They don't have a break until the All-Star break. There's no day off in here? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Oof. Okay, yeah, they don't have an off day until the All-Star break, and that is Sunday, July 12th. It is June 29th, and they've got a doubleheader in there. That's that reschedule from St. Louis. Remember that rain out? So they've got a Tuesday day-night doubleheader on Tuesday, July 7th next week. This is a brutal stretch of just a ton of games. You're home for the next 4 with the Reds. Then you've got to go to Arizona, so you're going to the West Coast. Then you're in St. Louis for 5. Then you're in Pittsburgh for 3. This is a little bit of a precarious stretch here, and I think the Brewers would be well-advised. It would do well for themselves if you can get a win today and a win tomorrow and just kind of stabilize yourself in this Red series. The Reds are in town for 4. You've got Gasser going tonight. Sproat coming off of maybe his best start of his career. He's had a handful of good ones now this year. Sproat goes tomorrow. Wednesday, Shane Drowan. And then Thursday, we get an absolute top-shelf pitching matchup. You get Jacob Mizorowski and Chase Burns. Now, I know not everybody's going to know who Chase Burns is. Chase Burns is the Reds' version of Jacob Mizorowski. He is only 23 years old. He made his debut last year, pitched in fewer innings than Mizorowski did last year. He was 0-3 last year with a 4.57 ERA. And I guess Miz, he had an ERA in the 4s last year. This year, Chase Burns is 9-1 with a 2.36 ERA. He's got the third best WAR for NL pitchers behind Mizorowski and Christopher Sanchez. He's got 112 strikeouts, 91 innings. Chase Burns throws over 100 regularly. I don't know that Chase Burns is throwing 105.5, but the amount of 100-mile-per-hour or better pitches on Thursday at American Family Field between the Miz and Chase Burns is going to be astronomical. It's going to take a Herculean effort from somebody else this year if you add all those up. I mean, there's probably going to be, I would think there's going to be over 100, I would say 110 or 120 pitches on Thursday that are probably going to be 100 miles per hour or better between those two. So you get 2 young flamethrowers going on Thursday, 24-year-old Miz, 23-year-old Chase Burns. That is going to be appointment viewing. I did look at tickets, but they're pricey, man. Even for the nether regions, they're like $75 a piece. But that's as good a pitching matchup as you're going to see of 2 young aces there in Mizorowski and Burns. So 4 games set with the Reds. Yeah, then you're in Arizona Friday, Saturday, Sunday before the July weekend. Then 5 in St. Louis with that doubleheader and 3 in Pittsburgh before the All-Star break. It's a brutal stretch. And you've got a bullpen that's beleaguered a bit right now. You've got a lot of injuries in the starting rotation. You could really use tonight. Let's forget about tomorrow. You know what you could use today? You could use a 5-run first or second inning, get Robert Gasser to give you 6 innings at least tonight and win this game 9-1. I mean, you could really use a comfortable win where the B bullpen does its job, your starting pitcher does his job, and you finally get some hits with runners in scoring position. But we'll talk on Friday, obviously, or Thursday, I guess. We'll talk going into that Miz-Burns start and see where they're at in the series at that point. But this, I think, is a tough spot right now. Even with the 5.5-game lead, 7 better in the loss column, you're feeling comfortable. This is a tough stretch of a lot of games and 0 days off. So they get after it tonight, a 6:40 first pitch, Robert Gasser on the hill. And I think we'll see if Murph's back in the dugout today. That was crazy. When they showed that picture of the shattered vertebrae, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for the Pat Murphy surgeon conversation of when will I be ready to be back at work? Well, it is vertebrae surgery, Murph. I will be back in the dugout on Friday. I don't know that that's great. I will be back in the dugout on Friday. Okay. I would have just loved to have been a part or to hear that conversation between Murph and the surgeon arguing over when he was going to be back at work. 6:40 first pitch tonight at American Family Field. We got to go here. So we had some Bucks news non-Giannis related. One that was surprising and 2 that were not. So the not surprising, we've had a ton of players. John Horst loves these player option deals where you sign them to a year deal and then he gives them. You'd love for them to be team options because then you're in control. But a lot of these deals he handed out last offseason were 2-year deals where after the first year it was the player option whether or not the player wants to stay. So Gary Trent Jr. sounds like he is opting out, and I would think for a veteran shooter, even though he was not great last year until the end of the year and kind of played himself out of the rotation. Gary Trent, though, not last year, but the year prior. Is this 3 years? No, 2 years. So the year prior in that playoff series against Indiana, didn't he tie a Ray Allen record, like 9 threes in a playoff game? He was not bad last year. 11 points per game, 43% shooting, 42% from beyond the arc. I mean, that's exactly what you wanted from Gary Trent last year. This year, not quite as good. Only played 21 minutes, 38% shooting, 36% from beyond the arc. And again, was not really a part of the rotation for the bulk of it until the end when they kind of had to play him. He is 27 years old, still not old, but we talked about you've got so many guards now on this team, and we'll see what the trades look like and what they do to parcel this roster out. But you've got now Ryan Rollins, you've got Burries, who you drafted, you've got Tyler Hero, you've got Yakachunas, and now we'll talk about Kevin Porter Jr. You've got so many guards. I just don't know where Gary Trent Jr. is going to find any playing time. And again, for a guy that is, a career 39% shooter from beyond the arc, he'll find somewhere on the veteran minimum. Miami? I do sort of feel like, you know who I saw was rumored to go to Miami? How is this team going to be good? And again, maybe like we talked about, maybe it's just year one, they're going to scrabble this thing together and they're going to win 45 games and make the playoffs, and Giannis will justify the move there and say, I won 32 games last year, 46 games this year, I'm back in the playoffs, that's where I want to be, and he can spin it any way he wants to. They were talking about adding Russell Westbrook to that team. I mean, that team, you've got so much. If they do that, Giannis is not a consistent shooter. Bam is not a consistent shooter. You're going to add Russell Westbrook to that? I mean, are you just going to play a 15-foot perimeter game? Like, what are they going to do? I think they are going to add Middleton, but again, what is that team going to look like? Anyway, I wouldn't be shocked if Gary Trent landed in Miami. It would not stun me. So it sounds like he has opted out. Jericho Sims opted in, which I am fine with. You can never go wrong having an athletic 6'11" big. And at the end of the year, on a bad team that was going nowhere, he was getting a lot of minutes late. He looked really good. Like the last 3 games of the regular season, last 5 were really good. Last 3 games, he had the triple-double against Detroit, 11 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. He had 11 and 10 against Brooklyn and 15, 7, and 3 against Philadelphia. These are not meaningful games down the stretch for a team that won 32 games, and their opponents were not in meaningful stretches, except for maybe Detroit, but I would guess they were resting guys because, oh no, they weren't, because you lost that game 137-111. Anyway, as the season went on, Jericho got more and more playing time. He is only 27 years old. The guy can't shoot a lick, but he can run the floor, he can dunk, he can score once he gets into the inside the rim area. In the dunker zone, he's a good rebounder, he's a hustler, he sets solid screens. He's actually quite good at passing, which I did not think. He averaged almost 2 assists per game, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a backup big man who's only playing 19 minutes a night, his passing, I thought, was shockingly good down the stretch. So those are not guys that you can find a ton, and he opts in at $2.8 million. So, is Miles Turner going to be here? You just picked up Kel'el Ware, as we talked about in the aftermath of the trade. I want to see a lot of Kel'el Ware. I think of all the players you got back, Ware and Yakachunas have the most upside. 22-year-old center, 20-year-old point guard. I want to see Kel'el Ware play the majority of the minutes at center and just see what this guy is. In year 3, he averaged 11 and 9 last year. Let's see what this guy can develop into. I do think there's a world where he develops into an Evan Mobley type of player, which is an all-star caliber center. So I want to see him see the majority of the playing time. But Jericho Sims coming off the bench on any team for 15 to 20 minutes with the hustle he puts in. He does the small stuff. Again, not a good shooter. He's not going to give you any perimeter jumpers. He's never going to develop a three-point game. I don't think he attempted one last year. Giannis should take notes. But he gave you 5 points, 5.5 boards, 1.8 assists, half a block every game. And for that cost, for 2.8, I am fine with that. Is Miles Turner still going to be here? Kel'el Ware? I mean, you've got guys. You're going to have to figure it out. Is one guy that we haven't talked about yet that sounds like he's going to be making his way to the Bucks, or at least is going to be playing in the Summer League, is last year's second-round pick, Bogle-Ube. Remember Bogle-Ube Markovic? Boob Jug? Jug Dish? Remember Boob Jug? Bogle-Ube Markovic was their only draft pick last year, second-round pick, the 6'10" Serbian player. He was the MVP of the Serbian league he was in last year and developed nicely. Remember, now he's not going to be Jokic, okay, but that's the league where Jokic was cutting his teeth before he got drafted in the NBA. And that coach of that team in a post-season interview or a podcast seemed to think that there was a very good chance that Bogle-Ube was going to be in Milwaukee and on the active roster this upcoming year. So that's another guy that how do you work into that front court rotation? Don't forget him. I mean, he is not going to be Jokic, but if he is a guy that's going to keep developing, like he went from a minimal playing guy a year ago in that league to the MVP, if he can continue to develop, that's another guy with a lot of upside that I'd like to see a lot of this year. So Jericho Sims, though, just gives you some stability, knows the franchise now, has been here for a year and a half, 2 seasons in total, and he just gave you a lot more last year and a diversity to his game that I did not expect. The one that's interesting to me is Kevin Porter Jr. I'm not sure what to make of this. I thought KPJ would opt out. He was injury-plagued last year. He only played 40 games or 38 games, but he was really good when he played, 17.5 points per game. His three-point shooting fell off a cliff toward the end of the year. Right when he came back from the injury, he was shooting 40% from beyond the arc. He's shooting 32 by the end of the year. Three-point shooting never has really been something he's been able to do consistently, which in the league as it is now, you kind of have to have that. You've got to at least pose a threat from beyond the arc, and he really wasn't doing that toward the end of the year. But his mid-range jumper is beyond dispute, and he nails that with reasonable consistency. He can get to the basket. He's only 25 years old, super athletic. He's a willing defender. I think he gambles a little bit too much. He's like Keyshawn Nixon. He gambles a little too much, and sometimes it works out where you get a steal and you get a coast-to-coast dunk, and sometimes you give up a dunk because you gambled and lost. I would like to see Taylor Jenkins get him to play a little bit more under control, but I thought, given all the guards they have now, like we just said, with Rollins, you draft Burries, Hero if he stays. Again, that's a guy that they could maybe trade. Yakachunas, who you're going to want to see get playing time next year in year 2, 20-year-old point guard. I just thought Kevin Porter would look around and say, I could probably get a 2 or 3 year deal somewhere, and I just don't know what the rotation's going to be here. I figured he would move on, but he's staying. And he $5.8 million, just like Jericho Sims. That's not a lot of money. I am kind of surprised that his agent didn't think that he could get more on a 2-year deal somewhere else, get a 2-year, $12 million deal, 2-year, $15 million deal from somebody. 17.5 points per game. Those kind of guys don't grow on trees. But he is opting in. I don't know what that means. You have so many guys now that are under contract for next year. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to make a move somewhere, whether that's trading Hero for a future draft pick, whether that's trading Miles Turner, packaging them maybe. I don't know. But they're going to have to clear out some room here off the deck. It's never a bad thing to have a lot of options, especially as you're kind of wandering now. Like, this is not the Giannis era where you feel like you have to compete. I've got to get myself out of that mindset, by the way. And I think a lot of Bucks fans have to, because I see some of these moves and my brain, because I'm so used to Giannis being here, my brain like instantly associates whatever the move is. KPJ opting in, Jericho opting in, Trent opting out. My brain is still on the we have Giannis and every year we're trying to compete for a title. That's not the case anymore. I don't know what they're trying to do. Can they turn this into a playoff team? Can you win 35, 40 games? Are you playing a tournament team, or are you a 20-win team and we're vying for, well, they don't have a pick next year, so that doesn't make sense. Also, in the anti-tanking world now with the new anti-tanking rules, it really doesn't make sense to tank at all, so you may as well try to win. But I am still interpreting moves from around the league and within the Bucks within the scope of, we have Giannis and we need to compete every year. Well, not necessarily. Not much anymore. I was surprised that KPJ opted in, and I guess I don't really know what that means for the guard rotation. My assumption is that KPJ has had conversations with Horst and or Jenkins before he opted in and got some reassurances there, because even though he's only 20, well, he's 26 now, he just turned 26. Even though he's only 26 years old, and AJ Green, I forgot about AJ Green. You've got AJ Green sitting there too, another guy you just gave a 4-year, $45 million deal to, who had an underwhelming second half last year. What do you do with him? They're going to have to make some trades. They're going to have to combo some people up. Maybe you find Turner and Green, you send them somewhere. Turner and Hero maybe turns into a first-round pick or multiple picks if you send them to Detroit or wherever. Some of these guys maybe have more value at the deadline. I know we talked about that. Tyler Hero could be one of those guys where you let him play. If he plays on this team with this roster, he's probably going to score 20-plus a game. And then at the deadline in February, if a team is looking for that piece to put them over the top, he becomes more appealing then maybe in that circumstance. But they've just got a ton of guys right now, and they're going to have to parcel this out and thin this out a little bit by the time we get to training camp in the regular season. The Kevin Porter Jr. opt-in I was surprised about. He scored 12 points per game last year, 17.4 this year, 7.5 assists. I mean, these are good numbers. 17.5 points, 7.5 assists, 5.2 rebounds. I know they weren't winning, but there was a little run there where you had Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins as your starting backcourt, and they were putting up 40-plus a game. There was a stretch where they went, I think, 8-2 in a 10-game run, and they were pretty good and pretty exciting. Is that your guard tandem of the future? Is that a guard tandem on a top 4 team, a top 8 team? I don't know what that is. But they have a lot of different toys right now. Taylor Jenkins has a lot of stuff he's got to sort out. Him and Horst do before we get to training camp in the new league year beginning on July 6th. With that, I would like to say once again that Giannis is still technically a Buck until July 6th. But that Kevin Porter news was somewhat surprising to me. I just feel like a move has to be coming. You've just got too many guys. And I love having a lot of good, young, talented guys. But if you go into the year with all these guys, you got to play. I mean, who are you going to bench? Who are you going to play? How are you going to get that playing time out? There's only so many minutes in the game. And I would prefer, as a Bucks fan, as much as I enjoy KPJ, I don't think KPJ is going to be a part of the next 3 to 5 years of this Bucks franchise, right? They're not going to, even if he plays all year and has a good year, they signing him to a long-term deal. Burries seems like he's going to be a long-term piece. Khalil Ware, Yakachunas, maybe Ryan Rollins. Those guys feel like I want to see them play more because I think they could be key parts in the next 2 or 3 years, or maybe the next window where the Bucks are going to be a really competitive team. I don't know that KPJ is going to be a part of that. So we'll see what they do for the rest of the summer. That'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. So it is a Monday-Thursday week this week because we are off on Friday. We will chat with you on Thursday, recap the Brewers series. At that point, get set for Miz and Burns on Thursday. That is going to be electric at American Family Field. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.